this is just music. I don't care what you call it. I don't care what box it fits into, but hopefully you pick up on a groove and you start to feel it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Gentlemen, John, Dan, thank you so much for your time here today. I do appreciate it. It's exciting times because you are about to release your full-length debut, and I was left talking to bands in that stage because, let's face it, you only as a band get to do that once. There's always a lot of excitement with a first record, but it also means that there's a lot to think about, and it's kind of like getting married. You know, if you don't pause on the day off, it all goes by in a flash. So are you guys allowing yourself to take that step back and take it in? What's the feeling right now?
You know, it's a little bit crazy because you're absolutely right. You know, a debut and we put a lot of work into a full length, but our timeline has just been so messed up because we started writing this before the pandemic,
Right.
and then we took, you know, almost 2 years off from like having real world. So a lot of these songs are super old for us.
Right.
And we're super excited to get them out into the world. But like even the other day, you know, we were like talking about some stuff and getting some songs ready. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that this is still new to the world, even though it's old to us. So it's gonna be a really interesting experience to finally share these things that we've had for years now with everybody.
Yeah. And Dan, how are you feeling right now?
I feel the same way. We've been working on this for probably close to 3 years now, just jamming these songs and putting them together, and it's real exciting for us, not only for everyone to hear it, but for us to finally get it out finally, because we've been sitting on it for so long, and it's just the excitement with all of that. So it's really great.
You say you've been jamming these songs for 3 years now, Dan. Like, when was this whole album written? Like, was it in the last 3 years, or are some of these songs, do they go back way back?
So actually, some of these songs do go way back. That we've jammed them out definitely 3 years ago, and then things kind of happen, and we all have like our own individual lives too, and we meet up when we can. And then a lot of these songs also we were writing on purpose. We're like, we have this record we want to put out like within a year. We have about 5 more songs we need to finish. Let's work on them. So we meet up like basically like once a week, write a couple new songs, and then those ended up also on the record too. So this is a combination of everything we've been doing since and what we're doing now, and we've kind of honed it in the middle there as well.
To be completely honest with you guys, I mean, I'm always honest. With this album, this is my introduction to the band. I hadn't heard EPs before. I was sent the first promo mailer from your teams with the album. I listened to the album in one go. I replied to your PR team saying like, I need to interview these guys. I'm gonna polish your ego right now, and for people that watch this channel know I don't do this every interview. This is a really, really good album. This is one of the best albums I've heard this year. It's so good. And I actually, when I listened to it the first time, I was like, okay, I know it. I've got an interview with these guys in a few weeks from now. I'm going to pause it, and I'm only going to come back to it a few days to see, like, because the first, introduction could almost be really cool. You might just be in a special mindset. I played it again a couple of days ago for the first time since a few weeks, and it's just so fantastic. Like, you guys did a really, really good job. Side note, my pre-order for a green vinyl is in, so please make sure that comes through. But you've seen some reactions, I think, already on some of the songs. People are really responding well to this album, and I think that you will, with this release, a much larger audience is going to be introduced to your music than with what you've put out before. I'm sure that you always feel confident about what you create, but now that people are actually reacting to the album, you're starting to see those comments. Is that a bit of a vindication? Like, yeah, we knew we had something good and showing now, or is this like, oh, didn't expect that people would be so impressed with the music? Like, what's that like?
We're kind of always in the middle. Like we really enjoy what we do, so we like it ourselves at the end of the day. But we also, as artists, want to share that with everyone, and we want everyone's input as well. And hopefully, it comes out positively. I think the best thing about this band is I think something that's been said before is we've together, the four of us have been writing music, hanging out together for well over 20 years. And it's just a culmination of us just knowing each other, and we kind of feel good in pocket with this band. This is what we've been wanting to do basically our whole lives, and finally we have a moment where we have the time. All our ideas typically jive together. If they don't, we sit around and we talk about it, and we kind of go over like, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to fix? But a lot of this just actually, fortunately, comes naturally, and I think a lot of that might show, and I'm happy that it shows, because the four of us really are very close and have known each other a long time.
Yeah. John, does that mean that you can bring anything to the music, or is there lines in the sand for the sound?
There are definitely no lines, because when we set out to do this, Dan and I have literally been talking about doing a project like this for over 15 years. Like, wow, we need to do a band that sounds like this. So when we finally got around to doing it, the biggest achievement for me was being able to show these guys riffs and have them get excited about it. Like when I hear Dan sit down and go, "Oh, I'm excited to do this one," like that's when I know we have something. So there's definitely no limits when it comes to that. But we didn't want to make the prototypical Doom record. We didn't want to just hey, we love sleep, let's just do a sleep worship record. Like, as much as we could have fun with that, we wanted to bring our own personality to this. So hopefully our references come through, and when we say we have no boundaries and everything's on the table, like, we want to be referencing Sisters of Mercy and Typo Negative. I think Dan's wearing a Typo Negative shirt right now.
He is, yeah.
Classical Black Sabbath, but then also like 90s alternative, and like just Dan references Steely Dan a lot when we're talking about drum parts.
Oh, yeah.
It's all in there together, and so our only parameter is, can we find all of these things that we think are cool and express ourselves in a way that feels like High Priest, which that might be a little bit more of an open door to walk through. But if that's coming through authentically, then I think we're all on board to, like, let's see where it goes. A friend of mine the other day, I sent him some new songs, and he pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, I love the new record. You're not a stoner doom band." And he's like, "You're way more than that." And I was like, "Good." I think categorization of music is so hard. We see these subgenres like, "Oh, we're a black metal band that sounds like this." All that stuff is great, because we're all just trying to, like, help people find a way to the music. But I really don't know what genre we are. And the new stuff that we're writing, like, it might be even different from where we are. We might pull in more new weird references, and as long as it feels like us, and that's an insider thing. I know what Dan is into, and Justin and Pete, and as long as we have our energy about it, I don't really care what genre people call it.
Yeah. It also means that you can not only play with many different bands, but you can also play for many different audiences, and you might see different reactions from different audiences. Is that something that you've noticed? Like, because you could play as well with Scorpions as with Watain, and then everything in the middle, right? So, and the fans of those bands you play with will probably react to different elements in your sound. When you've played some of these songs to people, to audiences, do you see very different reactions based on who you're playing to, or do you? That's
so interesting that you mentioned that, because last month actually, on right around 420, we played with Bongzilla, the most prototypical Doom, audience we could have played in front of. And then a couple days later, we played with our friend's band. They're called Fireworks. They're like a pop punk indie rock band that we've been friends with for 20 years. And they just asked us to play because they thought it was fun to have their friends on the show. The genre didn't make any sense, you know, but we went out and we played, and we had a very similar reaction to an indie rock crowd, pop punk audience that we did a Doom audience, because I think that hopefully our goal is, you know, we want to take these heavy riffs and all of our influences and mash it up together and present it as, this is just music. I don't care what you call it. I don't care what box it fits into, but hopefully you pick up on a groove and you start to feel it. And it's maybe not for everybody, but we're trying to blend enough genres that hopefully we can be in front of anybody. And it doesn't just need to be the guy with a beard wearing, you know, a ripped up Sabbath shirt that is going to be the only person that gets it.
Talking about, you know, people with beards with ripped up Sabbath shirts, which I'm sure you have somewhere in your closet, John. It's a big sound, and that could also lead itself to a big show. Now, this is your debut album. Like, you're not playing around with the means that an Iron Maiden has now that they're on their Future Past tour, but this music can be played by 4 guys in a jeans and a t-shirt on stage, but it could equally be a big show. What's your aspiration on that side? If, let's just say that you don't have to worry too much about limitations.
You know, we have not even started to think about it because we are so simple. You know, like, I would wear this on stage, Dan would wear that on stage, and that's, you know, about the way that we get to it. But that being said, you have 2 extremely big Metallica fans in front of you right now. And when we saw, you know, what they were doing for Master Puppets and the Justice tours, like, I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking about that. So I would love to one day bring some of the theatrics of that. Like, I'm a designer by trade. Okay. And I take, you know, album artwork is a big part of that. And we just did a music video that we really care about the visuals that come across with this band. And so I would love to see where we could take that, you know, in future iterations. Like, I love what Ghost is doing, you know, and I know that's a polarizing take in a lot of ways, but you go to their shows and you're like, this is just an experience. I feel like I'm watching a movie, and it's so much fun. And I understand why that, you know, might turn some people off, but Dan and I have gone seen Ghost a couple times, and it's just fun.
It's
and
a great
I would
show.
love to bring some of that to our world as well. Dan, I mean, you're also the historian when it comes to metal, so I defer to you.
Well, and with the Type of Negative shirt, and like their shows were also quite the experience, you know.
Oh yeah, actually, I was fortunate to see them many years ago on one of their last tours with Celtic Frost opening, and that was quite the experience. Peter Steele was basically just slinging jokes the whole time between songs. You suck, you suck. It was awesome. And like like John said, I don't think we've really given thought about that, but I am open to the opportunity. All of us come from a very humble, very punk rock background. You know, we do our own. We'll play the basements. We'll set up all our stuff. We don't care about all of that. And if we have the opportunity to be opening for Metallica, I didn't sign me up. I mean, any time.
John, I like that you bring up Ghost, because if we look at the lyrical part of the band, there is like an esoteric side to that, and you know, and it's big as well, and there's a lot to play with if you wanted to build that out and do a show or a concept more and more and more. So it's clearly important. It's almost the album when you play it, and I played it twice back to back, front to back this morning. It almost feels like a whole ceremony, you know, like that you take us on. So I know that there's a lot of, you guys use a lot of metaphors, but also a lot of double entendres and whatever, and that you play on religious ceremony as well, and celebration of metal and so on. But you know, what are some of those deeper themes that you want to address with your music?
Yeah, you know, when we started this band, we really didn't know where we were going to take it. You know, we had some ideas, and Dan and myself and Pete got together and we started writing some music, and we had an idea for a singer, and that kind of fell through. And then we've known Justin for 20 years, and we've been in bands with him for forever. And we asked, maybe he'll want to do it. And we had no idea if he'd be into it or not, and he was. But before he started writing lyrics and before we started getting into it, we talked about not just doing the same thing over and over again. And just because these riffs are heavy, we don't have to write dark, brutal, scary lyrics. We don't have to fall into that trope. And there's nothing against that trope, because I love black metal, and Dan and I are also in a death metal band together. And I think that's totally appropriate to go down that lane. But it just didn't feel right for this band and this energy. And so Justin really wanted to make it a point into bringing some elements of positivity and energy into our songs. So a lot of where we come from lyrically, which we also treat as a group effort, and we all contribute in different ways, is about overcoming things and not just being stuck in a dark place and having to live there and thinking that everything is so closing in on you, but knowing that there's ways to overcome, and a lot of optimism. And especially with music too, music is so important to all four of us that it kind of felt wrong to just only talk about the darkness, because when I'm with these three guys and we're writing riffs, whether we're in a studio, at practice, or on stage, like, that's the best part of my day, probably the best part of my month. So we really wanted to provide that we live in a beautiful place in the universe, and all of the energy that comes along with it, and it doesn't have to be dark and morbid all the time.
It's about finding yourself and becoming one with that bass. It's pretty hippie stuff, and that's kind of, if anything, that's kind of where the real stoner element comes from, is the one with oneself. But I like the juxtaposition of the pretty positive, self-empowering lyrics going along with the sometimes foreboding, doomy, riffs and music.
Yeah. And so again, to kind of bring us back to where we were a few minutes ago, all of that can culminate into a really engaging and cool, also very good looking live show. And how you interact with the people around and take them on that journey with you. So in order to wrap us up a little bit, we've got the album coming now very soon as we're talking. Obviously, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we can see a lot of opportunities for you to promote that album. So everybody watching this video, whether they're long-time fans, or whether they're discovering you through this interview, what should they keep their eyes open for?
So it took us a long time to get here, pandemic and all that stuff. We're going to have more music out very soon. There's not going to be a huge gap in between records. And in all honesty, we have probably an EP that's already ready to go. We wrote too many songs for this record, and there's not enough vinyl in the world to hold it back. So we're hoping really soon we have more music that's coming out, and we just want to keep that momentum going, because aside from everything else, this is our favorite thing to do. So more music for sure, and then the next thing is shows. Like, when we sat down to make this band at the very beginning, before we even wrote a song, our objectives were, I want someone to put this out on vinyl, which we have done, and the second thing is we want to go to Europe, we want to see the world, we want to be in front of people. So that's next on our list. We want to start getting on some bigger festivals, going to different places that we haven't been yet, and just really sharing this idea with the world as much as we can.
Thank you so much for your time today. Again, I do not say this every interview, I rarely say it, but you guys have made one of the best albums so far this year, and I'm super excited about a larger audience getting to discover you guys just like I did a few weeks ago. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I wish you guys all the best in releasing this first album.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and let's just keep in touch.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.